Welcome all and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Jess White, Dairy Knowledge Exchange for the West Midlands, and tonight I'm joined by Graham and Justine Worsey for the launch of Rough Grounds Farm in Ashbourne, Derbyshire. So to start, I'm just going to cover a little bit of housekeeping. So the event timings are as follows: 7:30 till 8:30. We expect this webinar will last approximately an hour. The webinar will be recorded and it will be made available after the event via our website or YouTube channel. And throughout this, all attendees will be muted. However, there will be the opportunity to ask questions. Questions are completely anonymous, and any questions that we don't answer throughout the webinar, we will answer at the end. So to ask a question, you can click on the little orange box and then drop down the question box and type your question in and send it, and I'll be monitoring these throughout. So before we get on to the main event, I'd like to say a little bit about the AHDB Strategic Dairy Farm Network. It's currently comprised of 16 dairy farms supported by both the Levy and the Betty Laws Foundation, and it's demonstrative of all types of systems. We look for farms that welcome challenge and have a mindset for improvement whilst being high performers. These farms hold 2 to 3 meetings per year, and they're sort of based like an open discussion group meeting. And we really encourage farmer-to-farmer learning and the use of KPIs and benchmarking. This year, each of our new strategic farms will be supported by a farm-focused steering group chosen by the farmers themselves. So on the Rough Grounds steering group, we currently have 6 members. We have Tony Evans from the Anderson Centre, who was chosen for his knowledge on block systems and his business knowledge. We have Beth Jowsey from LIC, due to her expertise in targets and matching cows for systems. Becky Harrison is the farmer's vet. She's worked very closely with the Worsey family on the cow and calf health. Andrew Mycock is a local dairy farmer from the Peak District. He's an autumn block carver and very financially focused. We have Kieran Wellwood, who's a dairy farmer from Leicestershire. He's a spring block carver, achieving 5,000 litres from forage. And then we also have Ben Wade, who's a dairy farmer from Leicestershire as well. He's an autumn block carver who's very cost efficient and a keen beam when it comes to silage quality. We have other members pending invitations. So I'll now move on to discuss the key performance indicators of this farm. So at Rough Grounds Farm, there's 270 cows on a split block. They're currently achieving 4,500 litres from forage, with a goal of 5,000 litres from forage. I thought we'd look at the percentage of cows calved at 6 weeks. So for the autumn block, the Worsey family calved 91.7% of their herd in the first 6 weeks, which from the KPIs that AHDB have from 2019, this would put them in the top 5%. For the spring block, they calved 80.3% by the first 6 weeks, which puts them in the top 10%. In terms of milk quality, we can see a big improvement from 2022 to 2023, with the cell count being 99 and the average back to scan being 21. Fats and proteins are very high at 4.8% butterfat and 3.61% protein, with a feed cost of just 5.25 pence per litre. And this is achieved from grazing the cows for as many days as possible. I'm sure the Worseys will elaborate on how they achieve this later on throughout this webinar. Okay, so I'll now hand over to Graham and Justine Worsey to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Justine Worsey.
And I'm Graham Worsey.
And yeah, we farm at Rough Grounds Farm in Cubley, near Ashbourne in Derbyshire.
Thank you. And then just before we get into the questions and delve deeper into your farm, we thought we'd show you all a little video just so you can get a bit of a feel for the farm.
Hi, I'm Jess Worsey. I farm here at Rough Grounds Farm in partnership with my husband Graham in Cubley near Ashbourne, Derbyshire. The history of this farm is me and Graham are both first generation farmers. We used to rent various bits of land off different landlords, and we eventually got the tenancy of a 60-acre starter farm in Cubley, and then after 6 years we were offered the tenancy of this farm, which is a 100 hectare dairy farm.
I'm Jess Worsey. I farm here at Rough Grounds Farm with my parents Graham and Justine. I'm 24 years old and I've farmed my entire life. We're very much grazing system. My dad's really passionate about grass and grazing cows and having cows out as much as we can. So that is what we've sort of moulded this farm around, including the breed of cows. We have a mixture of Jersey cross cows. We've got quite a variety of different crosses within the herd. We milk 270 cows on a split block system, which is about 50-50 at the minute. We used to be more autumn block, but we're now moving to a more spring based system. Our cows are producing 6,500 litres and 4,500 of that are from forage, but we'd like to increase that as much as we can.
The key features on this farm are definitely milk from forage. We're very passionate about keeping the cows out grazing as long as possible. We want healthy, happy cows, very low mortality, high welfare, no lameness. Everything really is about keeping the cows happy and healthy. We wanted to become a strategic farm because we feel there's a lot more we can learn and a lot more we can improve on, and with the help of everybody that will be involved in this project, I think that's the way forward for us for the next few years.
Oh, thank you for that. So, Graham and Justine, can you tell me a little bit more about yourselves and your family?
Well, as I say, we're first generation farmers. We started off just renting little bits of land all over the place and a few sheds, and then we managed to get the tenancy of a 60-acre starter farm, where we started milking 7 cows. Then after 6 years we managed to get the tenancy of this farm, where we've managed to expand the herd to what it is now. Both our children have been brought up on this farm and both work for us now full time, so it's a proper family farm. What to say?
No, thank you. And then in terms of your calving pattern, can you tell us a little bit more about that and how it's changed over the years?
Well, predominantly we were all year round calving with a few breaks for holidays and Christmas. And then when the payments sort of started, we moved towards a bit of an autumn block calving. And the idea was to start in August and finish in December. But then we started meeting challenges when we were still calving and AI at the same time. So then we had a break which formed the spring block as well as the autumn block. And just for management of labour and utilising grass, we've moved a little bit more springy than autumn, spreading the weight load and, I say, utilising grass better.
And in terms of yield, how do the two different blocks yield in terms of their literage and also their kilos of fats and proteins?
Well, when we was all year round was more 7,300 litres, but the milk solids wasn't particularly high at all, probably 4 and 3.3. We've shrunk the cows, crossed them more with jerseys, up the litres from forage, but the litres per cow has dropped. So the solids per cow is probably fairly similar, but we've got a smaller cow that hopefully stops out longer because it don't tread the ground up as much. I feel we should be still stop around about 6,500 litres. The jerseys have lowered it a little bit, probably too much, so we're then crossing them back to black and whites to lift their stature and yield slightly.
Fantastic. So when we went round your cows, you had a lot of different breeds mixed in there. What would you say the ideal cow is for you at Rough Grounds Farm?
It's probably 2/3 black and white and a third Jersey, something like that. I would like to say 50-50 would be ideal, but you know, you've just got to keep your eye on your calves. You've got to sell calves, being at all a farmer, and if you get too much Jersey in them, you just can't sell them. That's the top and bottom of it. I think our productivity, a 50-50 cow is ideal, but there's other issues around that you have to address. And I say we do need to be able to sell calves. We need to be able to get rid of calves is the answer. So yeah, I think if you get a 2/3, 1/3 is probably an ideal sort of a cow.
And when it comes to your two blocks, having the autumn block and the spring block, would you make the same breeding decisions for both herds, or would you alter that?
I have probably used slightly more black and white on the autumns, but we have used a lot of Jersey over the last 6 or 7 years. So some of them are a bit smaller, but really we want them pretty level across both herds. Really, there's not. Yeah, if you go around the autumn and make the autumns too big, it becomes more of a feeding herd rather than a grazing herd, and I'd rather have a grazing herd than a feeding herd. So you know what we're doing at the minute is trying to shrink the autumns and leave the springs as they are, if anything. So I say all the Jerseys have had black and whites on them, but the black and whites have cross-bred cows on them, cross-bred bulls on them. We ideally want somewhere between 500 and 530 kilos. We have still got some cows around about 600 kilos and some Jerseys around about 400 kilos. So that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, we did notice that variability and consistency of size. Is there a consistent trait you breed for when making those decisions? Is it purely grass-based or?
Yeah, again, ever since all I've really started playing on solids, everything's basically based around solids, hence where the Jerseys came in from. So we've pretty well, anything with high solids we've used. We've tried some Dutch Holsteins in the past, which was very good, but they put too much size on them. They were all right as heifers, but the time got third calves, they were too big, didn't fit the cubicle, didn't fit in the parlour. And the Jerseys are slightly the other way, again, fantastic for your solids, but they're a little bit small. So then we've sort of gone down the New Zealand route a little bit more on the Kiwi crosses to try and get a happy medium sort of a cow. The British Friesian, we used a lot of British Friesian in the past, and the problem with them is you run out of genetics. They're all very similar related, especially if you breed for one trait. So all the bulls are by the same size that put high solids on in your milk. So then you run into problems with inbreeding. So by crossing everything, it makes, obviously, or tries to eliminate the inbreeding side of it. We've not just quite perfected the art yet, hence we've got loads of different sorts.
And yes, I noticed a breed of cow you don't see very often. Was it some Shorthorns? Could you tell us the story behind that and where they sort of fit in within your herd?
When I first started farming, when I had suckler cows, I used some dairy Shorthorns on my suckler cows because I just always wanted some. So when we first started farming, we bought Shorthorns because they were cheap, basically. I went to Chelford to the show sale and I was buying cows at £350 a piece. We've got no money at the time. They fit our system, they don't die, they live forever. When you're not getting paid for solids, they were fantastic. But again, to keep them pure, you just run out of genetics. And, you know, there's not enough genetics in the Shorthorn breed to breed for solids, basically. You're forever just trying to breed to stop inbreeding. And I really enjoyed them, to be fair, but I never really sold any, so I didn't make any money out of pedigrees, and it was just like a herd of pets. And when we started getting paid on solids, we haven't got to do, but I wanted to do something, try and improve profitability. Neither of the children were really into pedigrees, so I crossed them all, and we've probably only got a handful of pedigrees left now. Just genetically based, really. If I could have kept them Shorthorns and bred for solids, I'd have probably stopped with them because the fertility and the longevity of them and the lack of problems with them. It's a phenomenal cows, really. It's just the genetics that let them down. Well, just not enough of them about, really. And the majority of the people in the Shorthorn breed tend to cross with Holsteins, and you just end up with big roan cows, which I didn't want either. I wanted the traditional 500 kilo Shorthorns, and I say it's just genetic, really.
Yeah, it was really lovely to see them all in the herd. In terms of your calving period, how long is it for each of the different blocks, and how do you manage that with your family and in terms of shifts?
The spring block's always been 9 weeks. The autumn used to be 12 weeks, and we have pulled that back to 9 weeks. And managing it, we just get tired. We just, yeah, that's why we like, I don't like too many in each block, because there's only me and Justine here all the time, so we do all the night work. And when you get a lot of them, we did calve 200 one autumn, and it did just take its toll a bit. It was just a bit of a chore, really, to be fair. Whereas like a smaller amount of less numbers, it gets it over a little bit quicker. But yeah, that's about as good as the management gets.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. In terms of your 6-week calving rates, we covered that it was 91.7 for your autumn block and 80.3 for your spring block this year. How have you achieved this? What innovation or data has helped you achieve those numbers?
I don't really know. You just try as hard as you can, and what happens. You know, the Shorthorn base was always very fertile. Fertility, along with the solids, has always been the next thing I look at when I'm selecting sires. We only breed to dairy for 3 weeks, so hopefully all your replacements are actually fertile as cows. And yeah, that's, you know, just attention to detail and try and do everything as good as you possibly can. And that's just what it's ended up like. I don't do anything other than that. You know, get your vaccinations done on time. Yeah, that's what we do.
Fantastic. And when it comes to monitoring key areas for fertility, what is your process for AI? Like, how do you choose which cows to breed to what, and timing of AI as well?
Again, when we first started block calving and using sex semen, I did pretty well, put 90% of them sex semen in the first 3 weeks. Well, it was 4 weeks originally, and we just ended up with a lot of heifers, and yeah, a lot of heifers. So then we started a little bit more selective. So we try and breed from the top 80% on a solids basis, then exclude any cows that you don't particularly like, or mastitis cows, slow cows that go to the beef. And again, it's a little bit more. I've not blinkered sex semen now. I do use a little bit more conventional, which I think's helped tighten the block up a little bit. Yeah, that's well what we're trying to do anyway. This is trying to breed from the top 80%. Hopefully, gonna improve things quicker, I should say. When we did put everything to sex semen, I say we did get a lot of heifer calves, and really probably heifer calves out of cows we shouldn't have bred from. Really, I was a bit worried about not having enough heifers in a 3 to 4 weeks spread. But as I say, it has worked out quite well, and we do get plenty of heifers. So I say we just keep tightening it up and excluding more and more cows and trying to breed from the best cows all the time. But then on top of that, you have your Yonis and Neosporas, which put a spanner in the works. You know, because you don't breed from your Yonis cows, you try not to breed from your Neospora cows, and you try and breed from your top cows. So yeah, it is a little bit of a challenge, that is. But yeah,
I noticed walking around your cows as well. You'd got Cow Manager in. Was that a recent installation? What made you decide to go down the route of having technology to detect heats?
Last autumn was the first time we used it. To be honest with you, we were just grant based. We could get a grant for it. and I thought we'd try it. Everybody raved on about it. Before that, it's always done by just visual only. We've never really tail painted or anything. It's all been done visual. I do spend a lot of hours, or I did spend a lot of hours walking cows, and then the cow managers cut that down quite considerably. I still walk them, but not as much as I used to. And it is a definite aid. It's a good aid, especially the spring ones when they're out in the fields, and like this spring when the weather was a bit temperamental. You didn't really want to go walking them on a wet, unpleasant day because you upset them a bit. Where the cow management was a godsend really this spring. The autumns you tend to see them quite easily a bulling. It's not a hard job really when you're in the sheds. But you know the grants that were available on it the first year, it didn't cost us a penny. So we've only got to pay for the service for the next 4 years. So it wasn't a massive investment, and it has been quite certainly a labour saving device.
Oh, fantastic, thank you. Moving slightly away from the genetics and more towards the cow health, what would you say cow health is like at Rough Grounds, and do you have any further goals in terms of animal health?
We keep improving year on year. We've had setbacks with salmonella and pneumonia. I mean, years ago we had no pneumonia whatsoever, and then it was about 4 years ago we had salmonella and pneumonia. We've combated the salmonella with vaccines. We do vaccinate for pneumonia now, but it's still a bit of a challenge. We keep changing things year on year, and we seem to be improving it. On the other side of it, on the cow side, we've never really suffered with an awful lot. E. coli is probably the biggest bugbear we have with that. We do vaccinate for everything, but we've never really had breakdowns of BVD or IBR. It's just pneumonia. E. coli is the only thing that we've. It's a bit of a challenge now because we want to use less and less drugs, which I personally don't agree with. And that is the biggest challenge. We've probably lost more cows with E. coli in these last 2 years since we've stopped using A180 and things than we ever have done before, which as a farmer and a bit of a cow fan, I don't agree with at all. In my opinion, that if you can save a cow's life by jabbing it, you jab it. You don't mess about. But other people say differently. So that is a big challenge at the minute.
Definitely. In terms of your mastitis rate, where does this currently sit, and how variable is your somatic cell count?
We were just over 8 cases per 100 cows of mastitis. Cell count, I think at the moment it's around about 60, 70. We do get up to about 140 just after calving usually, when you put in cows back in the tank that you've only been calved 4 days. We tend to have a bit of a spike then. But as they come in, the cell counts every year drop. It's easy to manage cell counts when the cows are in and out because you haven't got variable weather conditions. On the E. coli front, you could argue the cell counts are too low. So when we do get mastitis, it tends to be quite severe. But on the flip side, if you're doing everything clean, you shouldn't get mastitis. Again, I don't really know where the fine line is, because some people say cell counts are too low, and other people say they can never be low enough. But yeah, it is a fact that such as your E. coli and mastitis can be quite severe sometimes, although we don't get many of them. We've got a cow at the minute that's have to go. It had a severe case of E. coli mastitis. We've kept her alive, but she's lost all her milk now, so it's tatars for her. And that again, that's a bit of a challenge where we should be with this. And how do you not have low cell counts? It's always been, we've been at this sort of stage for probably 20 years now. Yeah, and it's just, I think you just have to sort of get used to these severe cases. Yeah.
Yeah, and when considering somatic cell counts, how do you manage your drying off protocols for your cows?
Everything under 250,000 is teats only, except for sloppy bag cows or really old cows, or cows you think are susceptible, you know, maybe ones that have had mastitis in the late lactation, or ones with a lot of warts on the tits, or anything that might be deemed by myself to be not suitable for single tubes. The spring ones tend to be again easier managed than the autumns. The autumns are outside, which you get flies around them and irregular weathers, whereas the springs are on cubicles and line, so they seem to be less susceptible to mastitis than the autumn ones. But again, as far as August bag goes, there's no real evidence to prove the sealed ones get less August bag or more August bag than the double tubed ones. It seems to be fairly even across the board. You get a lot of bad weather and sludge, you tend to get more mastitis than if you don't. But that's roughly rule of thumb. Anything under 250,000, single sealed only, unless there's a sloppy bag or an old cow or a susceptible cow in the double tube one.
Oh, thank you. And when we think about lameness, how important is mobility here at Rough Grounds Farm? And what is your lameness rate at the moment?
I don't know what the lameness rate is. We have a bit of a zero tolerance. If one cow comes in limp and it's picked up within 24 hours. My daughter does all the feet, and she does like putting blocks on them, so they have a block on them, and they're pretty well, they're not lame again. Mobility scoring, when the vet comes, she probably finds one every time she comes that's slightly lame. So yeah, we don't tolerate lame cows very much at all. They're dealt with promptly, and or dealt with before they get lame. If we see anything slightly favouring it, we do get a little bit of trouble with the autumns again. By drying off, we've done a lot of walking on the tracks, and we do get very thin feet. We used to routinely trim them, and we've stopped doing that now because we tend to do more damage trimming them because the feet are that thin by the time we dry them off. So we just tend to pick feet up that aren't growing perfectly neatly. And again, we seem to do better than that than when we used to pick every foot up and do them routinely drying off. And again, with the springs, we just do anything that's slightly overgrown or put its foot down flat. And again, it seems to be working pretty well rather than blanket doing every cow.
Oh, thank you. We spoke earlier about antibiotic usage. Do you know what your antibiotic usage is at Rough Grounds, and where are the areas you would use antibiotics the most?
Our current rate is 11.69. Which is slightly higher than it was last year. It was 9.4, but we did have an outbreak of pneumonia in some young stock last Christmas, and we used a lot of alamycin on them, so I think that's what's put our rate up. So it does tend to be the pneumonia in the young stock where we have tended to use most antibiotics recently. So yeah, but we have started vaccinating differently for pneumonia, so hopefully that won't be a problem again, and we can get that a lot lower this coming year that we're in now.
Oh, fantastic. In terms of cow health, what areas would you be interested in working on in the future?
Combating E. coli would be my favourite topic to do like that. Is the real bugbear, because it's not just a mastitis, it's a mastitis that they die with. So anything that can prevent dying cows, or vet intervention, which is another bugbear of mine. I don't like having vet out. And then again, since they took us drugs away from us, if we have to drip the cows, it's done by a vet, because we've struggled to do it ourselves. And when the vets do it, it doesn't work particularly good either. So that is a bit of an area that does aggravate with this E. coli job, because it doesn't seem a very good answer to it. I don't. Maybe she used to know what to do. The vaccines only help the severity of it, doesn't stop them getting it. Yeah, so that's the biggest issue I have anyway with the cows, is the E. coli side of it.
Oh, thank you for that. I think we'll now move on to the young stock. And just before we go into the questions, we've got another video to show you all, just so you get a feel for the young stock on the farm.
Our calf management has changed a lot over the years, and we try to improve something every year if possible, which I think we do. We're trying to increase the growth rates of the calves. We now weigh them regularly. We're in a healthy calf club with our vet. We're working closely with them just to monitor growth rates and make the calves as healthy as we possibly can.
Brilliant. So when we move on to the young stock, if we start from the very beginning, what is the process at calving here at Rough Grounds Farm?
Well, we try and milk and feed calves within the first 2 hours of birth, wherever possible. We test all the colostrum, and we only feed it the best, again, wherever possible. And if the weather's, like the spring ones, if the weather's a bit middling, they go under an eatable straight away till they're warm and dry, and then they either put calf coats on them or they go into the calf pens. After that, again, the autumn ones are slightly different. If the weather's really nice, they'll go straight into the group pens or single pens and group pens. With that tend to go unbreedable, but the spring ones tend to go straight unbreedable. We take them off the cows, try them within the first half an hour if we can. So we take them off, feed them, unbreedable, then into the pens. Yeah, and then Justine will tell you about the vaccination we do. She does that.
Well, in the past we've had troubles with pneumonia in the calves, so we have now started vaccinating them with an intranasal within the first 24 hours, and then another vaccine at 3 weeks old. So we're yet to see if that works, but it's normally Christmas time we tend to get the pneumonia problem in the autumn calves, so hopefully we're not going to get any pneumonia outbreaks this winter now, so we'll just watch this space really on that one.
Oh, brilliant. And when it comes to feeding the calves, how much do you feed them? And then when we think about weaning, when and how do you go about weaning them?
Well, we've altered it slightly this last year, because we've teamed up with our vet, Peatfield Vets, to do a healthy calf club, and we've been comparing, benchmarking ourselves against last year, and it was quite clear that we weren't getting the growth rates that we wanted really. So we've increased the amount of milk fed now. We've changed the milk powder, and we only did that halfway through the autumn block, but already it's looking a lot better. So we're hoping when we start the spring calves and they're on that system all the time, the growth rates will be even better. So now we're feeding at least 3 litres each end of the day. And then I don't start weaning them until they're 8 weeks old, where I'll cut them down to cut them down gradually over a fortnight really, so they're completely weaned at 10 weeks old, providing that they have at least doubled their birth weight. We've now bought some proper weigh scales from, because it was all weigh banded before. We were doing them every fortnight with a weigh band, but we have now got some scales, so hopefully we'll be even more accurate with that going forwards.
You've also mixed your milk powder up different. We was doing 4 litres at 20%, now doing 6 litres at 15%.
Yeah.
So 150 grams per litre.
Yeah.
We was on at 200 grams per litre. And that seems to have done better than it.
Yeah, we're really pleased with the results so far, you know, just benchmarking ourselves backwards. So I think there's still room to improve on that. So we're working closely with our vet and keep, you know, benchmarking the figures against what we've done.
And this milk powder should make a good
difference. And we're really pleased with the milk powder. So yeah, it's looking good, really.
Brilliant. And when we think about the environment you've created for the calves, what have you done to minimise pneumonia? How have you sort of set up the calves' housing?
Well, this has sort of progressed over probably the last 4 years, really. And I think each year it's got slightly better. We do use calf jackets on the spring ones, but we started making these calf dens, as I call them, where it's just basically a roof that they could get under, so they can control their own like microclimates really. If they're cold, they can go in them. If they want to lie outside in the open, they can. And this year we've sort of twisted the bells around so they can really get in and round the back, so they're completely out of drafts. And yeah, you'll go in there some days and they'll all be just lying underneath the dens, looking really nice and cosy. And then other days they'll be laying more towards the front, so they can really regulate themselves really, which hopefully will just help them health-wise.
And this is the first year we've had the blinds, so we can also pull the blinds up and down to help regulate them a bit more as well. Before we just put bales at the bottom, so if it's really windy, the wind will still go over the top. Whereas we're having the blinds, we can pull them down and try and help, just trying to regulate temperature more than anything. I always find with the autumn ones, because the weather's generally nice in August, just when we hit our time when we suffer with pneumonia, the weather's usually turned. So although the calves are stronger, they've probably had 3 months of lovely warm weather, and then suddenly get a blast of cold weather, so December time, and it seems to hit them every year. We have this issue with them. They're sort of reared, but then we get this pneumonia.
But we've also been doing, we started doing lung scanning as well with this Healthy Calf Club, and I was amazed how young they can actually get some damage to the lungs. So although we used to get the pneumonia at Christmas time, it was becoming evident that the damage was probably done when they were only a few weeks old. So with moving our vaccine to them being younger, I'm hoping that the damage isn't there. So hopefully it won't be triggered by the cold weather and cause a pneumonia outbreak, you know, when they're 3 to 4 months old. So
yeah, we're old vets, because we had the problems with the pneumonia at 3 months old. We started vaccinating at 5 or 6 week old, so the course were ready for the 3 month old. But I said the vets have sort of changed the outlook on it with this lung scanning, and they're thinking they're probably going to challenge as young calves, that's then affecting them as 3 month old calves. So when we're vaccinating, it's too late, they've already had the damage. So I say this year's the first time we've done it, so it'll be interesting to see if it works or not.
We spoke earlier about you using sex and conventional semen for the first few weeks. After that, you use beef semen. What happens to these beef calves once they've been born? Where do they go?
Well, we treat the beef calves exactly the same as the heifer calves. They're not second-rate citizens on this farm, but then we do sell them hopefully at about 3 weeks old. We did used to sell them to Livestock Link, but this year we advertise them privately, and I found a private buyer for them, and he's bought every single beef calf offers at about 3 weeks old, and yeah, it's been a lot better. So yeah.
And when we think about TB in Derbyshire, we're in quite a high risk area. What's your TB contingency plan when it comes to sort of stocking rates and housing?
We've got another farm that we bought. That's ours as fallback. If we get TB, we put stock on that farm.
We did suffer for TB for quite a few years, so we were used to rearing all the beef calves right up to finished cattle. So yeah, we have done it before, so we could do it again if we had to.
Yeah.
But whenever we're clear of TB, we will always sell them if we can, because you just never know if and when you are ever going to go back down with TB again. So
since the badger cull, we've so far not had a big issue with it. But before that, we were shut up.
Nearly always, weren't we?
Yeah,
really?
probably 10 years we never really had much of a 6-month break. But we say that in them days we fattened everything, we stuck everything right through. Again, which suited the Shorthorns and British Friesians. We used to do bull beef, and it was quite good, to be fair. We did all right out of it. But then when we decided we were making more money out of the dairy than the beef, so when we started having clear runs of TB free, we started selling the beef for stores or calves, and then just got a few more cows. And we have been clear for a couple of years now, and it's gone well. We have got an outlet for Angus calves, which we are shut up, but we have to keep until the 4 to 6 month old. So we do have a bloke who will buy them off us. We don't get very fat out of it. It covers costs, so you do a lot of work, but not a lot of return out of them.
But yeah, this private buyers, it's gone really well this year. So hopefully we can pass our TB test again, and he'll have them all offers in the spring as well.
Brilliant. And just before we move on to focus on grass, what are the key areas of focus on calves for you guys at Rough Grounds?
I just really want to continue improving them. I feel we can still improve our calves' health. We can increase our growth rates. I'm really looking forward to the spring, to starting them off on this way we're doing them now, just so I can compare them to last year's spring. We'll still keep working with Becky from the vets on the lung scanning, and just see how it goes. There's just so much more you can do, really.
And it's also apparent, if you get everything right to start with, we're getting them off the concentrate sooner on either onto grass or forage. I mean, the best spring ones this time again was off concentrate at 3 month old and just doing it on grass. That's a colossal saving, that is. But again, the smaller ones that didn't just blossom, they were on concentrate all summer, and they're still smaller. So that key to getting them going right from the word go, and hitting all your parameters and getting doubling the birth weights and doing everything right, then follows through the first year definitely. So you know, it's imperative you get your early management spot on within your control. As I say, if you have a bout of pneumonia or some more scours, you know what you can do about that. But it is apparent then good calves do just go well, and it's like a massive cost saving. So get to 3 month old and go them on to forage, and you're away then.
Yeah, fantastic. And moving on to look at forage, you're obtaining 4,600 litres from forage. How do you achieve that? What sort of KPIs, so key performance indicators, are you interested in related to grass?
Well, the grazing is, you basically want everything at 12.5 ME. That's the key. You want to graze grass at 12.5 ME, and you want to make silage at 12.5 ME. So the silage management sort of emulates the grass management. We try and cut every 4 weeks if we can, 5 weeks is the max. We have done slightly more 5 weeks this year because we've had some red clover lays, and you want the red clover to flower to put all the goodness back into the root system. So we have gone a little bit more 5 weeks rather than 4 weeks. And same as grazing, you want to be grazing covers at no more than 3,000 if you can, and keeping that quality there. Yeah, that's pretty well. Silage or grazing will follow the same sort of system as much as we can. And we have cut silage lays at 3.5 weeks before now if growth rates are there. and the weather's there. I'm a big believer, if the sun's shining, you want to be mowing. You don't worry about how much grass is there, you just mow it, because you can't rely on sun being there when you want it to be there. So the areas we've gone with first cuts middle of April, and the shortest interval we've done in between cuts is 3.5 weeks. And yeah, it seems to work so far on what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we've not been very lucky with the weather here in Derbyshire this year. It's been quite rainy. How have you managed those wet days?
With the cows, I mean, again, if you get the yields that we're getting, the wet weather days don't really affect them, to be honest with you. They might do in October, but in the summertime, the cows not really phased by it at all. We had a bit of trouble with sludging fields this summer with the excessive rain, because we are quite a heavy farm. And that does cause a dip in yield, but you don't have to worry about it too much. We never fed anything other than grass all summer. We do a little bit on off grazing, holding them, moving them more frequently. When we're going to high covers this back end, and it was very wet, we did them on sometimes 6-hour breaks in the daytime. We put them in, and I moved them again at dinner time to as residuals. So yeah, it's just trying different things, splitting groups up, putting smaller amounts in different fields to get your covers down properly. There's no quick fix or easy way about it. The more you put in, the more you get out of it. If you try and do it the best you can every time, you'll get the results. If you think I will be right today, you don't get the results. It's as simple as that. So there's, same size making, you want to push it at the right stage, you've got to roll your pit, you've got to get it in, you've got to get it sheeted up. And if you don't do all them things, you don't make quality size. It's just simple as that, really.
Yeah, and walking around your farm, and also pictured here below, we've got a picture of your Herbal Lay. How have you found your Herbal Lay? Would you do more?
Yeah, we're going to put, because of these SFIs, we're going to put herbs in every field now. How did we find it? It was a little bit of an experiment this year. The chicory in the fields where Jess is there grow exceptionally well, and if anything, it smothered the grass out a little bit, which I'm a bit cross about. But if we hadn't put it in, we might not have got the grass anyway, because the grass just didn't establish at all in May when we drilled it. It was really dry and hot, and the chicory really thrived. So yes, we did get a crop off it all summer, and we will do next summer. But whether we have to overseed it with the grass again is a different matter. The other fields that we did later on in the year, that we drilled in July or June time, that came a little bit more even. We've got a little bit more even balance between grass and herbs. And then we've overseeded some fields. And again, that's been quite successful this year. We've put some clover, chicory and plankton, and then it all took really well, to be fair. On the performance, there was only those two fields that we grazed extensively all summer from end of June onwards. It certainly put litres up and solids down slightly, which all the trials have suggested, because it's a high protein, so you do tend to get a little bit more milk but slightly lower solids. It got a little bit more challenging to graze it at the back end. We got some very fast growth rates, and it kept beating us a little bit, which then we struggled to get the residuals, get it down. It does go a little bit stemmy, but I say it is the first year we've grown it, so it's yeah, we've been learning a little bit with it. But with the payments on it now, it's a bit of a no-brainer in my opinion, not putting it in. It doesn't deteriorate your paddocks or your grass quality, and if you get paid for doing it, then why not? It'd be interesting if we have a dry season to see how it performs. I say the thing this year, it did grow phenomenally well. It was keeping on top of it was more of a challenge than anything else.
Definitely. And has this Herbal Lay helped with your fertiliser use? What is your fertiliser use at Rough Grounds?
Again, we've over the last 10 years we've cut it. We used to follow cows with 50 kilograms of product per acre of nitrogen. then we moved to single top, and then we dropped that down to 40, then down to 30. This year, with the red clover layers, we didn't fertilise, we only fertilised first and second cut, and after third and fourth and fifth cut just had slurry. And the grazing fields this year, we didn't fertilise anything after June. We've got quite a lot of white clover in the grazing layers. That chicory field there, that we graze every 3 weeks, that had no fertiliser on at all. I think we put a bit of compound in the seed bed to try and get it established, and that worked. We never saw fertiliser again. So I'm pretty pleased with what we're doing as in fertiliser usage, red clovers, white clovers, and then I say the herbs this time. It will be interesting again going forward if we get more of them in, to see if we can cut back any more. The research says they're a bit slow to get going in the spring, so you want to be applying your fertiliser in the spring so you can get your early cuts off, but after that they should pretty well maintain themselves, especially with a bit of slurry as well. Put the P's and K's back on there. So yeah, it is looking good, but I say this year was, after the drought in May and early June, it was quite a good grassy time, so we struggled to stop grass growing this year, so it wasn't, you know, a normal year to trial it in.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned slurry. What are your slurry application rates?
Weather permitting, we probably try and put 3,000 gallons to acre on in the spring, February, March time if we can, and then we generally between 2,000 and 2,500 in between cuts. We've tried this year and the latter end of last year, putting it on in between grazings. We've got a trailing shoe, and we do treat the slurry. And again, I was a bit worried about putting it on in between grazings, because if you're going in at 3 weeks, I was worried that they might get too much rejection. I say it certainly worked. The last 2 years we've done it, not after every grazing, probably more the later end of the summer when the fields are a little bit drier. We've gone on and they have grazed it really well, to be fair. We've only put on 2,000 gallons per acre. But yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised with it, to be fair. It has worked quite well.
And in terms of nitrogen use on the farm, do you get any incentives from the processor for monitoring an effective use?
We do now. The ARLA have started well, it's a point system, so the less fertiliser you use, the more points you get, which it turns into more money. So yeah, they are pushing hard for you to lower your fertiliser use.
Brilliant. And then when we looked at the infrastructure of your farm, we noticed that you had 2 lagoons on one of the previous slides. Do you have enough storage for your slurry going forwards? Because I know we spoke about expansion this spring. Do you think that future-proofs you with future legislations coming into place?
Yeah, well, the 2 slurry stores are of equal size, and we were still in the first one, so that generally gets us into January. So if you're starting going mucking from October, and then the other one's as big, so that should take us through right through till we've never used it, filled the other one right up yet. So we should have at least 5 months storage. Yeah, so we're not too worried about that just at the moment.
No, fantastic. And then just moving on to a few general questions. What do you believe the biggest challenges to your business are?
Probably the weather.
Weather, TB, and politics.
Yeah.
They're the only things we can't control ourselves. Everything else you can try and control yourselves, but we can't control the weather, can't control TB, and we can't control the politicians.
And what are you hoping to achieve by working with AHDB through the Strategic Farm Programme?
Just improve everything, really. You never stop learning. Every day is a school day, and just any suggestions really? I mean, the way we've improved over our lifetime and still improve things, you know, you never say never. There's always an idea or a different way of doing things. And also, it'd be nice to be able to get points over to the so-called politicians. You know, the more airtime farming gets, the better. So you never know, one of them might just look at something, I think, and we could do something about that, perhaps.
No, definitely. Thank you. And just before we move on to the questions in the chat, I'd just like to touch on the areas you want to focus on in future meetings. The 3 key areas we spoke about were increasing litres from forage, improving your herd uniformity, and further reducing your cost of production. We're hoping to have the first meeting in person at Rough Grounds Farm in April 2024. And we hope that everybody on this webinar can make that. And yeah, I'll now move on to a few questions within the chat. So focusing on your Herbal Lays, we've had quite a few questions about those. So what Herbal Lay mix do you use? Is it a standard GS4 or your own personal mix? Is it tailored to your farm?
We've used HSG3, which is a germinal grass seed, for probably 10 years now. And basically all I did was I bought a kilo of chicory, a kilo of plankton. We always have timothy in the grass anyway, and some other fields had a bit of cocksfoot, and I just mixed it with hand and drilled it like that. And then on the mowing fields that we put the herbs in, that was the I think it's HSG4 or 2, I can't remember, the silage lay anyway. And again, we just put some chicory and plankton in with it and a bit of cocksfoot. And I buy a bit of red clover and stick that in it, mix it up myself and dunk it in, and it seems to work quite well. Because I mean, this year it's just basically an experiment. We didn't do it for any payments. I just wanted to have a go myself, and I wanted to put the grass in. I wanted to put in that suits us, and I just put the herbs in with it. And to be fair, you can't tell that we mixed it behind. It came pretty evenly. As I say, the grass fields we overseeded, put a kilo of chicory in. I probably should have put 3/4 or half a kilo in. It just smother it a little bit. So that was a bit of a learning curve. Yeah, that's pretty well basically what I did. And that's what we plan on doing this going forward as well. Just mix our own. You know, the criteria on the SFI doesn't state what you have to put in. So if you just put what you want to put in, you know, the grasses you want and a few herbs with it, and that's good enough.
No, fantastic. And then in terms of environmental schemes, I know, Justine, we spoke briefly about SFI. What sort of schemes are you looking to enter into, or what sort of environmental schemes are you currently in?
It's just the SFI at the minute. We have put our application in now. So we've just gone for the Herbal Lays, the hedgerow trees, the management plans. So yeah, so that's what we've gone for. It wasn't too hard a thing to put in for, really. So yeah.
Apart from not cutting the edges, we haven't really changed anything.
No.
We started with Herbal Lays last year. We'll just do the rest of the fields this year, and yeah, and then get a bit of money for it, hopefully.
Yeah, we're not in any other schemes.
Oh no, thank you. And we've had quite a lot of questions relating back to your cows. So what do you look for in a bull is one of the questions.
Solids, fertility, temperament are probably the 3 things I look at. Stature. I don't buy anything with a positive on a stature. And then you just go down it with your capacities and your teats, udders and feet. Yeah, but they're the three things I look at first: is temperament, fertility and solids, and then stature probably, and then I go down the rest of the list. I do find that if you have cows with nice udders, they tend to breed cows with nice udders, chances what you put on them. And again with feed, you know, we're not looking for an EX cow. We want a cow that will walk up and down the tracks and the unit don't leak on it, don't get too excited with that. Anything after that, we don't want them too big.
No, definitely. And I think just in the conscience of time, we'll make this the last question, but I will forward you on any other questions to answer afterwards. But we've had a lot of interest in your vaccination programme. So what vaccines are you using routinely on farm?
BVD, lepto and salmonella on the cows, and then rotavirus from the calving, and then the pneumonia one and the calves, and Usvax. We Usvax and
RBR.
So yeah, it's just basically the main ones that we pretty well vaccinate for everything. It's yeah.
We don't like problems really, so
yeah, we could be. We haven't got BV on the farm. All the blood samples we've done over the last 10 years, it's come back negative. With the vets recommend you still vaccinate to protect yourself against neighbours or straying cattle or people coming on the farm. We've never, I said salmonella in the calves and pneumonia in the calves is the only thing we've ever had an issue with. But all the bulk samples say that we should RBR and lepto, so that's what we do. It's, yeah, you don't know if you're doing right or not, to be fair, but we do it.
No, fantastic. And just one last question, and we've just had it coming in the chat. Are you intending to increase or decrease the herd size going into the spring?
Yeah, we should be up to about 320 cows by spring with the heifers we've got coming in. So yeah, we've just took another lad on. So I think we'll be creeping over 300 going forward. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We really hope that you can join us in April for the first on-farm meeting, the date of which is to be confirmed. Thank you, Justine and Graham, for sharing your farm with us today, and hopefully we'll see you all in the future.